Welcome, guys, to another episode of The Common Theory. I'm your host, Chris, along with my man, Dallas. Once again, it is a pleasure to be here. I am excited, as always. We are in the last week of prep for the tournament. It is going to be this weekend, and to let you guys know our thoughts on what's going to show up, what we think is going to be the most prevalent archetype, and things of that nature. So, this is going to be spicy. And if you're going to this event, I think you need to hear this. So, Dallas, let's start this off, man. Our impressions. What do you think is going to be showing up, like archetype wise?
Considering time limits and this being the first super major online tournament, I would expect people to lean more towards combo over anything else just because it's very streamlined. It's been figured out for a long time now how the combo lines work and all that stuff. Very efficient, and you can just kind of do your thing.
So,
So I would
solitaire.
expect, yeah, I would expect a lot of solitaire combo decks, honestly.
I could see that. I
Um,
could see that. You just get to kind of do whatever you want, and if you don't know what's happening, you just do your thing, right?
yeah, just a lot of I'm gonna do my thing. I'll play some removal to stop you whenever you're going to win, but I would expect a lot more streamlined stuff and a lot of greedy counterspell usage and stuff like that. Probably a decent number of mid-range decks, just because it's been pretty prevalent in the online meta for a while now,
I,
especially with the release of the initiative and stuff. I would expect to see at least some of it pop up.
I'm a little indifferent with that than you are. I actually don't think so. The only thing I believe mid range is going to struggle with here is that you have to keep up with the metagame. And so, since this is going to be our first, online event, there really hasn't been, excluding, in the Discord servers as a whole, what they are all playing. So, if you bring the wrong removal spell in your mid range deck, you're setting yourself up for failure. So, I do think some will show up, but the amount I think is going to be leaning to the lower side, because if you look at one end to the other end, you have your combo, your nice streamlined combo, then you have your nice streamlined aggro. Now, once again, I'm kind of with you. I do think combo is going to be the most prevalent thing we're going to have, because aggro, you need to know who you're supposed to be attacking, right? That's going to be a little difficult if you don't know what's going on, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but we got to get our feet wet. You know what I mean? So if I was going to be pushed to shove, I think I'm with you. It's going to be combo. It's going to be a whole lot of
Yeah.
combo. And,
I think control is going to be very infrequent especially in the first major tournament. Like control is the deck where you have to know the meta. You have to know what your cards do against everything possible. Know
oh,
when
yeah.
to tutor, what to tutor, how to interact with everything. So I think control is definitely asking a lot going into the first online big major event. So I wouldn't expect to see much of it, but I do think it could still be relevant, especially if we have a really skilled pilot playing it.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree with that. The better the pilot, the better the deck overall, too. Um, that's another thing, too. So if we look at the one last tournament we had, was it Riches to Rags, I believe is what it was called?
Yeah.
Um, they they had a lot of combo there. Once again, we all know Gretchen was the winner. Do you even expect Gretchen to show up to this event?
I mean, I know I'm not playing. I know Bobby Be Fine, he's not playing because he's hosting the event. So there's the two Gretchen tournament win players not showing up.
Yep.
And I don't see. I've seen a few people pick it up here and there. So I'd say maybe one Gretchen, but I wouldn't expect Gretchen as much as Tatiova. I feel like Tatiova is still more popular than Gretchen overall.
Yeah, the street like Tatiova is so streamlined at this point. I mean, it's just like a machine that does what it needs to do, right? It gets you from point A to point B, and you know what's going to happen. Your goal is to stop it from doing the deed, right?
Yeah, and it's the deck everybody knows. If you're new to the format and you ask what's the best deck, a lot of people will tell you Tatiova.
Oh yeah.
So it's a deck that a lot of people have heard about, and yeah, it's just an easy one for even people who are still getting into the format to go, oh, I've heard this deck's amazing, and it is, obviously. Um, so, and it's fairly easy to pick up. I mean, what deck is actually like super easy to pick up, really? But for a combo deck, especially a Simic combo deck, I'd say it's fairly easy.
Yeah, that's the thing with our format as a whole, though, right? Like a lot of our decks are not as easy as people perceive them to be. So just overall, you need to do your homework on the deck overall. We've spoke about this though in previous podcasts. Go check those out, guys. Go check those out. But as long as somebody's doing their homework, even with the aggro deck, right? Like if any of the gut players show up, I hope they know to take a player out, right? Like if you have a gut player kind of sprinkling a little damage here, sprinkling a little here, you're not going to get anywhere like that, right? They need to just end this person, end this person, end this person, right? So hopefully, they've done their homework with the deck as well. They know how their interactions work. They know which creatures are doing what. And as long as you have that base knowledge, I think it's going to be you're going to be pretty safe overall. As long as you how do I put this? Actually, you know what? Let me just jump. Let's just go crazy here. I got to go a little bit way off subject. Do you think we're going to have responsible players there? As in bringing the removal, or are we going to have the selfishness? I have two counter spells on my deck, or I have two removal spells, and I'm just trying to get to the end of the racetrack as fast as I can.
I really hope we have people playing interaction. I mean, I know personally, I think the least number of pieces of interaction for like counter spells and removal combined is like 10 for me for most of my decks. I think that's a low end number for me. I think it's very important to have at least that many so that you can kind of know that you should be able to find one of those pieces by turn 3 or turn 4 and be ready to interact with people, because that's when you really need to start dealing with other people's threats in the game. It's
Oh yeah.
way earlier than some might think it is.
Oh yeah. And we did talk about that as well. So, let's not jump too deep into that. But let's go into the actual tournament preparation process. So I have had actually a decent amount of people actually privately DM me through Discord and ask me about Gut Leader and say, hey, why is this card in the deck? Like, what is this card doing and whatnot? Honestly, very similar to Be Fine working with you prior to his event. Um, that's why, in my opinion, he did so well because you kind of coached him and showed him a few things here and there, and he took it to heart and applied it, and obviously we know how that ended. So I've had a few people ask me like why certain cards are in the deck, why have you not had this the whole time, and I think it's just I want that deck to be a responsible deck at the event, right? If it shows up, there's a chance there won't be a single player there playing Gut Leader, right? I highly doubt that, but you never know, right? Like everybody may just audible to combo, do their thing because it is a bit nerve wracking, right? Like some of these decks that you're playing there, like you don't want to play the deck that is I make one mistake and lose, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's part of the reason why we're not going to see as much control, because a lot of control decks do punish you heavily for making that one mistake, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, Armix Dargo, that's a prime example, right? A lot of like mono black control decks, same way, right? Crypt Rats, it's like, oh, you should have popped it for the 5, you should have popped it for the 4. And like you end up getting to the end of the game and they're at 1 and they beat you and you're like, I one more. Like
Oh,
if I
you
would have
forgot to
paid the
put
one more.
You forgot to layer all of your crypt triggers as stacks of one instead of just
Yeah.
doing X for five.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it hurts. It hurts. But speaking of that style, let me jump into this. So we are speaking of the tournament preparation, and I would like to throw some of our personal experiences that we've had this past couple weeks. And it's ironic because we did our video of last week, and immediately after, the both of us got into a couple games, and I lost on turn 5 the first game and on turn 6 the next game through interaction.
Yep.
Wow, was that insane. What
Yeah.
like was that not absurd? And let's lay it out for you guys so you guys can actually see what decks were there. So we had Puzzle here, our man playing Gretchen, seat 1. Then we had Malcolm Kedis, seat 2.
He won the second game. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's just throw them all out there so they know the
Yeah.
decks.
Yeah.
And then we had me, Abdel, Adrian, Sword Coast, and then we had Zada. Wow, are these some powerhouse decks? I had the availability to win turn 6, both games. Could not do it. I never made it to turn 6. I lost on my turn 5. Like, what are your thoughts on that, man? I was just blown away. I mean, Malcolm Kedis went back to back, try to win on turn 3, both games, right? Like, it was nuts. Like,
Yeah. I think one thing that's definitely worth noting is that really just showed the power of Malcolm and any red partner because none of those games was Kedis cast.
yeah,
And Malcolm still tried to win on turn 4 both games and then did win on turn 5 the first game.
yeah, through
So
interaction.
just Malcolm, if you have Malcolm and red, you can win absurdly early pretty consistently. Very strong commander.
Yeah, I mean, I believe decks should be prepared to play against a Malcolm. Like, I don't really think the other commanders, excluding Dargo, if a Dargo variant shows up, but specifically all the others kind of fall into the same boat. But wow, is Malcolm powerful? And then what was it? And let's just keep hitting on game 1. I played
Alrighty.
a journey against the Kill Fiend because I didn't want the Kill
Journey
Fiend to
into
bash.
nowhere.
Yep, to bash my face in, and then Oblivion ringed the what was the name?
Ingenious artillerist,
There
yeah.
you go. And I was like, haha, we got him. He can't win. Untaps and plays the Reckless Fireweaver. Like,
Yeah, and
bro, like.
I had a counter spell in hand that could only hit non-creatures, but the Malcolm deck had an Amoeboid Changeling in play already, so I couldn't counter the Reckless Fireweaver because it's a creature. And then
Yep,
the full combo is just in play, can't do anything about it.
yep,
So my interaction didn't matter. We removed one of the artifact pingers and then they just had the other one, and it was like, all right, well, you
yep.
got it.
You got us. And then jump into game 2. Oh, you know what? I'm missing one huge thing. Let me not forget game 1 where Zada, if Zada would have untapped, probably wins the game as well because Zada went what was it, turn 4. Zada drew like 8 cards or something like that. Some
That
absurd
was
amount.
in first, so I think it was their turn 5, and then Malcolm won immediately after them in seat 2. But it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, Zada drew 7 cards or something, and then if they untapped, surely, with 5 creatures in play,
Oh, yeah.
they're probably winning turn 6, and if not, 100% turn 7.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was just a table of like raw power. Like, I was sitting there with my Abdel just being all sad, like, wow, I can't stop this from happening right now. There's nothing I could do. Like, what am I supposed to do to this? Like, this was insane. And then that's jumped to game 2 where I'm like, haha, I got it this time. I have everything I need. And of course, Gretchen decides to go ham. I mean, what did you have when you won the game? Turn 6, like over 20 mana? Something absurd like that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, turn 6, I had 2 land untappers and a land that tapped for 4 mana, and then I had activated Gretchen a lot the previous turn, so I had like 6 other lands in play or something, 6 or 7. so
Yeah.
I had at least 20 mana.
Yeah, it was
And
just
yeah.
absurd. It was insane. And like there was nothing like all the cards in my hand were allowing me to win the game. Like if I untap I won because I had the Archaeomancer effect in hand. So I was like, haha, I could win. And then I was like looking at your hand saying, can he win? And then you're like, draw, 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 draw. I'm like, yeah, he could win. Got us. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
And worth noting, I was in seat one that game, and Gator was in seat two. So it was like I'm winning on my turn six, everyone else's turn five.
Yep.
And then if I did get stopped, Chris is probably gonna win immediately after me on the other two players' turn five functionally still.
Yep.
It's the format is fast when people are really going for it.
Yeah, it was. I was just blown away. And oh, we forgot the other big, huge part. Malcolm tried to win the turn prior to that one with two lands in play. Like, I'm like, are you really going for it again? He's like, here we go. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, Malcolm went for it early. My untapper got counterspelled, but it was a memory lapse, unfortunately. So it went to the top of my deck, and then I was able to just activate Gretchen and draw it, and
Yep.
still have the mana to just win, which
Yeah.
was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah,
But
it
I
was
had that and a
so
protection
crazy.
spell.
Though,
Amazing games.
yeah, those games were just like jaw dropping to me. I was like, "Yep, this is true tournament preparation." Like, wow, like, wow. Like I expect that to be a little bit normal at the event. I'll be honest with you. But let's kind of jump into something a bit spicy. So this is something that I think the viewers will really need for this event. So there's a few different methods on how to win the game, in what order and things like that. We're only going to touch upon two though. And the two we're going to touch upon is win first and win after. So just like you were saying, Malcolm tried to win first all of those games. It wasn't difficult. And if we stopped Malcolm, we had the win after player, right? So let's use Abdel, Adrian, Zorko, Sailor. Let's use those pairing again. That is at that table the slowest deck, which is insane to talk about, right? But it is. So that deck is always going to try to win after. There's no reason it should try to win first, because if the other ones aren't winning, you know they got a hand of control, right? They're just sitting on a giant conglomeration of kill that, bounce that, counter that, especially a Malcolm deck, right? I mean, the amount of treasures they can hold up and just produce. I mean, the decks are wild. So, what do you think about that? Like, what is your preferred method of winning, Dallas? Like, are you a win first or win after?
It really depends on the deck, obviously. Like if I'm playing Malcolm, I'm probably going to mulligan for a hand that can win first. But if I'm playing, for instance, Malcolm Breach is a deck that I really like, where it's a bit slower and has that grind game, I will still mulligan for a hand that can win as soon as possible. But if I start going to like 5 cards in hand, I like to just stick with the best that I can get because that deck still has the grind potential. Same thing with Gretchen. Whereas a deck that's a bit more all in, like Malcolm Kedis, I am 100% mulliganing to just try to find those win conditions. Whereas if you're a slower deck, maybe you can afford to play a bit slower, develop your board state, ramp, keep extra interaction to make sure you can stay in the game a bit longer, things like that.
Hmm.
What about you, Chris?
Well, so I will say this: I have a few tournament decks of choice, and one of them is Abdel. I am Abdel Adrian Swordcoast is one of my tournament decks. I will be playing that in the future at an event. You guys can hold me to it. That is a win after deck. That is not a win first. I believe one of the issues that archetype as a whole had when it first entered the format was it was always trying to win first. And when my success rate began to go up with it, it was because I was trying to win after. And so I plan to take that method with how I have that deck set up and do that. Because some of my pieces are so redundant and some of the other pieces are just kind of like, here's a Wormfang Newt. And everybody's like, what is that? Like, what is this awkward card you put into play? It's just like, it's a Newt. It is a weird creature. So it's very strong at winning after. But on that sense, we have the other decks, like you were saying, Malcolm Kedis. If I was playing that, I think we're in the same boat here. I am 100% trying to win first. You have Kedis, right? You're just the amount of mana that deck can produce in the first couple turns is insane. Well, I should say treasures, not mana, but it's wild. Like, why would you not try to go for it? Especially with all the counter magic, with everything that deck has in it. Why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the deck. So that's definitely something that you should be thinking about during deck construction or when you're playtesting or anything like that. Really take into consideration what turn does this deck goldfish a win on? If I'm just playing solitaire, nobody's interacting with me, what turn do I win on? Is that a reasonable enough turn consistently to be able to go first, or do I need to try to play a bit slower, maybe take an extra turn to find my win and try to stop other people in the process?
Ooh, here's a good one for you. Here's a good one for you. Do you make them have it? Are you that guy? Are you the make them have it guy? Are you that guy?
I
Come on, let
I
us
mean,
know.
I am like in that Gretchen game that I did win. I did not have a counter spell in hand whenever I went for my win. I had a Tamiyo's safekeeping, so I could protect my creature from removal, but it was like I have one piece of protection that doesn't do anything against counter spells. I'm just gonna try, and if I fail, then so be it. But once again, it's very situational, right?
Oh yeah, of
Like
course.
in that game, if I go for it and I don't get there, I know you're probably gonna win
Oh
on
yeah.
the turn. And if I draw all the interaction out for you,
I'm
then
definitely
I'm
winning.
screwed.
Yep, I'm definitely winning.
Um, because I've made everyone waste all their removal on me, right?
Well, that's actually
Gretchen
one
with
of the topics
20.
though, right? That is one of our other topics, and since you brought it up, let's bring it up. What happens when you're the win after deck? Your reason you're able to win after is because of everybody burnt their removal and everybody burnt their spells on the first player trying to go for it, right? Which makes you, the next player trying to win the game, so much easier, right? So it's like, is it who of you to not try to win first? I would think not, right? I am the make you have it person too. And the irony about that is my daughter was the one that taught me to do that. I was never a make 'em have it player. And we were playing Dargo Kedis for a while. And one day she goes, "Yeah, Dad, just put Dargo into play on turn 2, and if they kill it, they kill it. You'll play it again." I was like, "But I got all these resources." She goes, "Yeah, but if they don't, you win." And I'm like, huh, she's not wrong. And I'm getting over here schooled by an 11-year-old, right? Like, looking ridiculous here, going, yeah, I've played for, over 20 years, and I got an 11-year-old telling me how to play. But she's not wrong, and it made the deck that much stronger. And I'm like, yeah, I got to make you have it, right? This is Red Deck Wins. We're sprinting to the finish line, right? So I'm very interested to see what decks show up with that win first method, right?
Talking about win after, how do you think if you're building your deck to win after, what do you think that should reflect in deck building? What kind of decisions does that help you make about what you should or shouldn't play in your deck?
Well, for me personally, I think a win after deck needs a lot of free interaction. And the reason I say that is because when you appear to have your shields down, other players are more comfortable. So like, some of our favorite cards that we've mentioned before, cards like Snuff Out, cards like Thunderclap, are perfect examples of cards to have in your hand and tap out, and your opponent is going, oh, this is my window, but the truth is it's not, and you're sitting here with your Thunderclap in hand. So I like to build around things like that and make it appear as if I am vulnerable, and then they go for it and I stop them. And that's not saying I may not be the one to even stop them, which makes it even better for me, right? But I really enjoy the more proactive approach to get something off the table.
The difference between playing interaction spells that are just protection, like Lauren's Escape, or Vines of Vastwood, kind of. That one can also target your opponent's stuff, so it's not really just protection. But cards that are in your deck to protect just you versus a counter spell, which is more mana, but it's more proactive. It's not more proactive, it's more reactive because it costs more mana, but it's more versatile. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes,
So,
I'm with you there. Something that could do more than what's supposed to.
yeah, it's like if I'm playing the win after deck, I would lean more towards playing those counter spells because they're going to help me not only protect myself from the one stray piece of interaction left over, but they can also help me beat the win first deck if no one else has it. Whereas if I'm playing the win first deck, every single bit of mana counts, and I'm going to be playing as many one mana protection spells like Stave Off or Lauren's Escape.
Well, why don't we use one of
Or
your favorite ones? Let's use Dispel, because I know that's one of
yeah,
your favorite spells.
Spell.
Dispel is like
Love that
the
card.
poster child, right? For this protect me and only me, right? Because you're not stopping a Freed from the Real with a Dispel, right? You're protecting your Freed from the Real with the Dispel, right? So that's like the easiest way to show the difference between it. And then you have the counter spell to hopefully stop your opponent, or vice versa. So
Yeah, even Days is like, I found that card to be amazing in Gretchen when I am
uh
like, hey guys,
uh I
I'm
have
gonna
been
win on turn 3 or turn 4. What are you gonna do about it?
Yep. Yep. You've stopped my Dargo on turn 2 with the days several times. Yep.
Yeah,
Got
even
me.
in those scenarios where it's just like, I need to stop this deck as soon as possible. If they're tapping out on turn 2, Days is very strong and it counters creatures. So yeah, against Dargo, stuff like that, it's like, okay, I
Got him.
know you're coming at me. No.
Yep. 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 Yeah, good old Dargo. What creature do you think is going to show up? Specifically, creature. It could be in the deck. It could be the commander. Let's go, commanders. Let's not make it so wild.
I mean, in terms of singular commander, probably Malcolm, just because it has multiple viable partners. But I don't think it's fair to just say a singular partner that's not in a partner pairing. So I'd expect more than that. I'm sure there's going to be 2 Tatiovas, 5-mana Tatiova, Benthic Druid, not the 3-mana one. But I would expect at least 2 of those, just because I think that deck's insanely popular.
Yeah, I could see a few Tatiovas running around. That was going to be mine. Like it's safe to always assume Tatiova is going to show up, and it's nice, right? It gains life. It's good against aggro. It's good against other combos. So it's kind of like
Yeah, it's a very
you know
strong win after.
yeah, exactly. Or win first. The deck is
It
solid.
can, yeah.
Yeah, the deck is solid. I don't know. I'm gonna hold faith for Dargo. I want Dargo to be the most, like, I want it to be there, right? I want it to be there in bulk. And then people are like, I need to dust off my lightning axe. Like I need to dust off my lightning axe.
I will never play that card,
uh,
no matter how many Dargos there are.
I have been burned by that card several times here recently, where people are like, I dusted off my lightning axe. I'm like, why are you playing this card? Like, just killed Dargo. I'm like, yeah, it did. Like, you got me. So let's move on to our last little topic here for the night. This is a quick one for you guys, just the last couple days here before the event. But I wanted to throw out something that kind of has been unsaid, and specifically is a lot of these decks you never see in casual games or even in testing because these decks have existed and they're known and they're established. And I kind of wanted to throw that out there because these are like they're sprouting up like daisies, like just like boom and boom. And that's these old school Titans. I've seen Tatiova in games recently. I've seen Ghost Torbod in games recently. Malcolm Kedis in games recently. Some of these decks that I've only played a handful of times online are just showing up again. What do you think about that, Dallas? Like, what are your thoughts on this? I don't want to say uprising, but the old is kind of coming back. Like, what do you think about that?
I think part of it might be just people getting ready for the tournament and trying to figure out what they're going to play and looking at some of what were considered to be some of those best decks and going, all right, these decks are strong. I'm going to play them. And whether or not they're successful, who knows? We'll find out. But I do think just falling back on what is known to be strong is never a bad idea, right?
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. But it's just wild, right? I used to play against Weavers all the time. And like in the past couple weeks, I've played Weavers like 6 times. And I'm just sitting here going, wow. Like I haven't played against this deck in forever. And here it is. The only one of the old school Titans that I haven't seen at all is Crackling Drake. Crackling Drake is still just like off, gone. So I mean,
Guess you're going to have to bring it back for us, Chris.
no, my list is still the oddball of everybody's, that old school. My Flicker combo Drake list. That was a hard control deck. I miss that deck. I wish I could still play
I
it.
think there was. I think there was even someone playing Sea Cradle Witch recently,
Really? Uh,
which is just green white uh, land untapper combo
I mean,
instead of Simic.
there's just so many decks. Like we have a few decks like is it Guildmage specifically has been around. We've seen Parcel Beast as well. There's a lot of like these decks that we haven't seen in a good amount of time. Just kind of like, honestly, that quote from Mulan, popping out of the ground like daisies. There's just like boom and boom just everywhere, and I'm like, wow, like they're just coming out of the woodworks here. Like, and I'm very interested to see what we have going on. But I think we could agree we're gonna see combo, right? Like that's what we're banking on. That's what we think it's gonna be.
Undeniably, I would assume. I mean, I could be proven wrong. If everyone wants to bring aggro decks, good for you.
That would be a hilarious. Could you imagine that? Just sit down. It's like four gut leader players just looking at each other like confused, like, what do we do?
I
Like,
don't want to see any four-player pod of the same commander. That sounds so difficult to navigate.
I would just laugh. Could you actually imagine that? Like four Tatiovas just staring at each other like, what are we doing? Like, oh, I'm just here,
I have
guys.
played in a game with 2 or 3 Tatiovas, but never a full pod.
I
So
I have done it too. I've never done a full pot either. But granted, that one pot I did, which I lost miserably. This was a long time ago. I was playing Crackling Drake. I was in seat four. It was seat one Tatiova, seat two Weavers, seat three Tatiova, and seat four Crackling Drake. And I was just like the most miserable pod, right? We were just like draw go, draw go, draw go, draw go.
cursed in that pod. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's so many counter spells in that pod.
Ugh, the miserableness of that pod was just. Ugh, there's some games I've never forgotten of our format. That is definitely one of them. I am very happy that we do not have those 4-hour games anymore. because that was about what that game
Yeah,
was. And that game was in
it's
person. Like that game was crazy.
yeah, it's
So,
really interesting when you get a lot of decks that are on the more reactive or slower game plans. How even if they're all combo, like in that scenario, I believe your crackling drake list was it the combo list at that time?
oh yeah, it was always that. I've never. It's always been the Ghostly Flicker Peregrine Trait combo deck forever.
So yeah, especially at a pot of a bunch of flicker decks, they're usually all just sitting there because no one actually wants to try to be the first one to win because you know there's no shot of you winning
Oh yeah.
first in that pod pretty much,
Oh yeah.
and it actually kind of messes with the whole reason people might want to play those decks in a tournament in the first place, right? That
Yep.
90-minute time limit. And then everyone's sitting there. And in a tournament scenario, somebody has to go for it.
Yep.
And it's going to make those pods really interesting to see how they fall out,
I
in
mean,
my opinion.
I'm excited for that. That last 10 minutes pops up right, and they're all sweating bullets. Like, who's gonna do it? Who's gonna go for it? Like, are we drawing here, guys? Uh,
I'm just going to take combo game actions until the game ends, even if I don't win, and force a draw.
yep, exactly, exactly. But I think that's all we have for you guys this week. Let us know what you guys think, and Dallas, take us home.
Yeah, be sure to leave comments down below if you have any thoughts on the video. Make sure to give us a like while you're down there and subscribe if you're not already. And hopefully we'll see y'all at the tournament.